You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Welcome, fellow patriots. Get ready for an hour of unabashedly pro-American, pro-conservative, and pro-biblical principles. This is the Blake Johnson Program.
Well, hello, America. Welcome to it. This is the Blake Johnson Program on the Lanterns Radio Network, and I am back once again behind this microphone to do the show. Sorry, I was absent last weekend. I was busy. I was at a friend's place, actually. His wife was trying to plan this early birthday party surprise for him, and his birthday is actually not for another week or two, but that's part of the reason why she planned it for last weekend, was because he probably wouldn't see it coming. Plus, they would have been out of town by then anyway, and wouldn't have really been able to get some of his friends together. And he's actually my friend who had this birthday party last weekend, which was a big part of why I didn't do the show last week, because I was so busy. But he and I went to college together, and we've seen each other like once or twice since I graduated last May, but we hadn't really had a full-on hangout, get together, just goof off kind of ordeal since then. So she invited a few other friends over to surprise him and everything, and you know what's really funny about these sorts of things, especially when you have someone you're trying to put a surprise on and they're really hard to pull a surprise on because they're really good at figuring things out. He had actually figured out, as we were trying to hide it from him, he figured out that there was a birthday party that was being planned. But, well, it was actually someone who spilled the beans to him earlier that afternoon. After I showed up earlier that afternoon, he was with somebody else. And they said something like, "So, what's about this birthday thing you got going on?" And, like, really? That one guy has to ruin everything, of course. But, no, it was a good time. I had a really good time being able to catch up with him, being able to hang out with friends, and just get away from the stress of everyday life. I mean, I've been working a lot, not nearly as much as I'm sure most of you out there, but still been working a lot, and it's just one of those, I'll just be honest, it was one of those weekends where I just got so wrapped up into just reminiscing over old times at college and things of that nature that I just didn't get around to doing the show, but here I am, once again, and I will try to make up for that lost time. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. So much that happened in the past 2 weeks that I want to delve into here. One or two stories that hasn't really been covered that much, or just kind of glossed over, and I think it's a pretty huge deal. And it relates to a President Trump nomination that I think is one of the worst, definitely the worst nomination of his presidency, but one of the worst nominations to any government office in recent memory. So we'll delve into that more. But first I want to start off by talking about something related to the culture, related to faith, related to celebrities that this world likes to hold up in high esteem. So, Stephen Hawking. You may have heard the name. I'm assuming you have. Very, very famous scientist and thinker. He passed away, I believe it was on the 14th, at the age of 76. He suffered from a rare form of motor neuron disease. He's been suffering with it since the early 60s, and that's what left him in a wheelchair and kind of distorted, in his composure and everything. That's what it was. But still, very much mentally alert, mentally there, and he's published a lot of really big name pieces that have gotten a lot of attention over the years. And one of his, I think it was like his final work before he passed on, he was predicting the end of our universe as we know it. And he was predicting that there'd be this sort of parallel universe that would emerge after the stars, I guess, fizzed out in our universe and they couldn't support life anymore, something of that nature. But that was his prediction. I know he was predicting just a few months ago, he was warning against the dangers of AI, artificial intelligence. And he was warning of the dangers of that getting out of control here on this earth, combining man with machine to the point of machine essentially taking over mankind. Now, that would be something that could happen, decades down the road. Just kind of depends, but that's a whole nother topic. But it was very fascinating. Him, and I know Elon Musk was also warning against the dangers of AI and things like that. So, and obviously he's given a lot of thought to some pretty complex issues, but he was one of those people that, I'm just going to be honest with you, I feel like he wasted, it was a big waste of potential, a majorly wasted opportunity for someone like him to live the kind of life that he did, yet be a full-fledged atheist. I mean, he's openly denied the idea of there being a God, saying some of the same things that Richard Dawkins has said. Well, there's just no need for God. Science has proven otherwise. We just don't need a God. God didn't need to exist, and that kind of thing. And I tell you, it amazes me how quickly and how much people are so willing to just fawn over someone like that and say, oh, he was so smart, he was so wise, he was such a genius. And I saw it coming from somebody after he passed on, saying, well, the world has gotten a lot dumber now. I'm thinking, really? Really? I mean, I'm not trying to, speak ill of the dead, but at the same time, we got to be honest here. We got to be frank and say, look, especially as a Christian, you know this and I know this. You can be as smart, as knowledgeable as you want to be. But even what we would call the dumbest of people understand that there is a higher power. That there is something greater than all of us. If you look in Romans, and you look in Romans, and it talks about how, the things of God that have been created by God, things of nature, and things that you see around you, are just the things that God has blessed us with and has created are so magnificent, so complex, that we are without excuse. There is no excuse to not believe in God, to not believe that there is a higher power. Now you can debate on whether or not people are able to figure out that God is Jesus, and figure out the Trinity and things like that, but the knowledge that there is a God, that there is an intelligent designer, that's plain as day. And in my experience, my limited experience so far, but just in the things that I've seen and that I've seen from others, it all comes down to, do you want to believe or not? Will you accept or reject that idea? And I've said this on this show before. It all comes down to, who do you want to be God? Do you want to be God? Or do you want God to be God? Do you want to decide what's right and wrong and just live based off emotion, based off feeling? Or do you want to live by a higher standard of conduct and have a relationship with the God who sent his son to die for you, to die for your sins, you know? And to me, you know, I look at the life of someone like Stephen Hawking, and I think it's a sad waste of talent. Because just looking at Stephen Hawking, looking at the things that he's accomplished, it's pretty darn clear that chemicals just didn't happen to fire in the right position in order for him to be able to think like he did. You know, that gift came from somewhere. But many people, an increasing number of people, reject the idea of there being God because, quite frankly, they want to be God. They want to rule over their own lives. Now, that's not the case for necessarily everybody, but in the end, it does come down to one form or another, the belief that, I can do better. I don't really, I can do whatever I want to do, and that's fine. Well, with the rise of their, being, the rise of being independent and, being a go-getter and doing whatever it is you want to do and chasing your dreams, it just feeds into that even more. And in all reality, the only thing that matters at the end of all things is just this one question. Do you know Jesus? That's what matters. And it's easy for people to think, well, it's not all black and white like that. Well, no, it actually kind of is. Especially if you look at Scripture, that's what it says. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The way, the truth, the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. And again, like it says, these things are clearly seen so that we're without excuse. So, sad, very sad, but I think it's a wake-up call to people like you and me to take a step back and realize, wow, this is pretty important. This whole Christian walk, it's important to not just believe and not just live it out, but to disciple others, to be some sort of a role model to others, to spread the gospel, to spread the good news. Because here's the thing, if all you're doing is trying to get by on your own, trying to live a comfortable life, but you don't really share the gospel with anyone, you don't really have much of a relationship with anybody, you're doing it wrong. As a Christian, you are doing it wrong. We are to live out the calling that we've received, but we are also to spread the good news to other people. And part of that, yes, is by living it out, because that light will shine and people will see that light. They'll see there's something different. But it's also just purely having relationships with people, not being in it just so you can win them over to Christ, but have a relationship, get to know people, and as time goes on, share the word. Because I gotta tell you, I've got friends of mine who are atheists, who are agnostic, and just the thought that they could spend an eternity in hell scares me. And it should scare all of us. It should wake us up, get us out of our comfort zone. And I'll just admit to you, I haven't done a great job at sharing the gospel with other people. It's much easier to just say, well, I believe, and that's all that matters. Well, no. We weren't just put on this earth to believe and live life, by ourselves. We were put here in large part to help others get to know Him as well. And I know, the Holy Spirit is the one that actually does the revealing, the ultimate convicting, and so on and so forth. But we all have a role to play. So, anyway, that's just a big, long rant, I know, but it's important. It's really important, and I don't hear much of anybody talking about that. They just talk about, the things that He did on this earth. Well, I'm sorry, but those things are temporary. You can't bring that into eternity. Especially since God already knew all that stuff anyway. The stuff that Hawking figured out, God already knew that. He created it. There are things that obviously he didn't figure out that, well, he knows now. Talking about Hawking. But, yeah, that's kind of where we are with that. And it amazes me too, because there are former atheists like Lee Strobel who figured it out. So it can be figured out. C.S. Lewis, he was an atheist, and I think Tolkien was the one that really helped lead him to Christ. I'm pretty sure it was Tolkien. It was either Tolkien or was the other way around, but I'm pretty sure Tolkien was the one that influenced C.S. Lewis to turn his life over to God. So, again, like I was saying, we all have a role to play. God wants to use you, but do you want to be used in that way? We're going to take a break, come back on the Blake Johnson Show. We got so many other things to talk about. I want to talk about some of the Trump nominations and then the firings that have been going on, what this all could mean, and we'll talk about A Wrinkle in Time. Oh, what a lovely, lovely movie. I haven't seen it, probably won't see it, but it's not been doing so well. And I'm not really sure why people are so surprised about that. So we'll talk about that and more right after this quick break. Program in the Lanterns Radio Network, where we are here to fix the machine. So this, I think, is fascinating. Very fascinating, and I'll just be honest, quite satisfying. Quite satisfying indeed. So, there's two movies that I want to talk to you about. One of them, well, they're both, at least the history of these stories, are based in Christianity. But only one of them actually turned out to be Christian in the end. A Wrinkle in Time. Now, I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what that was, A Wrinkle in Time. This is a movie that just came out like a week or two ago. Stars Oprah Winfrey. I think Reese Witherspoon is in it. And there's like one or two other big name stars in it as well. And it's directed by Jennifer Lee, I believe. She's the one who directed the Disney movie Frozen. But this was written by... the original book, I believe, came out in the 60s? Maybe 67, I want to say. It might be earlier than that. But the author, she was a Christian. And she wrote this book as an allegory. It was a science fiction book, almost in the same realm as, like Narnia or Lord of the Rings. Obviously, different stories and everything, but, that same kind of idea of telling a story but using Christian allegory throughout the film. Well, the difference here is the book uses plenty of Christian themes, allegories, references, so on and so forth. However, the movie took all of that out. All of it. In fact, the director, she openly said, yeah, we took all the biblical references out because, quote, we've progressed as a society. As in, we've progressed past Christianity. We don't need the Bible anymore. She's like, well, sure, yeah, the author was a Christian, but, she was trying to write from a point of view during that time that was more common back then, and that was her truth. But, we've progressed so much, and it sounded like she spent a bit too much time talking to Oprah Winfrey. That's what I think happened. But it was sad. It was really sad. And leading up to the release, this stuff was coming out, and people were finding out that, oh, wow, this is not the story that was originally told. And apparently this book did fairly well. I don't know why, but I'd never heard of it. I remember going to see Star Wars, and they showed the trailer of this movie. I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was a brand new story. I didn't know. But apparently, this was a fairly significant book that came out a long time ago. And I think Disney made a TV movie out of it a few years ago. So this is like their almost a reboot, but bringing it to film. And so far, it's not done well. I think the last time I checked, it made like $43 million, but it was on a budget of $100 million. I mean, again, this has the Disney stamp of approval. You have two ginormous stars in this film. Opening weekend, I think it made like 20-some million, which is awful for a big budget film made by Disney. It doesn't get any bigger than Disney. And it's a pretty popular book. So with all of these things, plus the big name stars, can you think of a bigger, a more famous person, a more famous woman than Oprah Winfrey? I can't. Reese Witherspoon, she's another very popular actress. So you have these people in this film, and it bombs. And it has really bad reviews from the critics as well. And I think that this is a bit of a different reason. I mean, I'm definitely not going to be one to say, well, I think the reviewers they didn't appreciate that they took the Christian elements out. No, I don't think that was it. I think they just didn't like the movie. I just thought it was too much CGI. Didn't look real. Story was kind of boring, etc., etc. That's the gist of what I got out of it. But I think the reason, and I've been seeing this trend with movies like that will come out, and they will try to shove some sort of progressive leftist agenda, anti-biblical agenda in somebody's face, and in America's face, and people just aren't really interested in seeing that. They just aren't. If they would have left, think about this. If they would have left the story the way it was and just directed it the way it was written, obviously you have to leave some parts out because, putting a book into film form, you can't put everything in it to cover 2 hours or so, however long the movie is. But still, leaving the content, leaving the main parts in, if they would have just done that, this movie would have easily broken $100 million by now. Easily. But no. When you have comments like that come out, and of course, a few weeks ago they had, the Golden Globes? Jimmy Kimmel says, yeah, sure, these films have a lot of faith-based, of course I'm paraphrasing, but they have a lot of elements that resonate well with much of Middle America, much of, the Christian religious side of America. We understand that, but we're going to make these other movies here just to tick off Mike Pence. Thinking, really? How petty of you? But at the same time, if you think about it, that's a win. And the reason it's a win is because you know that you're ticking them off. You know that you're getting in their head and they can't stand it. And another proof of this is the I Can Only Imagine movie. I was hoping to come here today and tell you that I've seen this. I haven't seen it yet. I really, really want to see this film. It's based off of the lead singer of Mercy Me, Bart Millard, and the hit song I Can Only Imagine, that not only broke all kinds of records in the Christian music industry, but crossed over into the top 40 of other industries as well. It is hit home with so many people of all different backgrounds. And it was written in response to the lead singer's father's passing away. He's related many times how his father was very abusive. He was not a good father. And for the longest time, they didn't have a good relationship. Well, towards the end, after he was diagnosed, I think it was with cancer, but he came down with a terminal illness. And in the last remaining a few months, years of his life, he turned his life over to Christ and became a different person. And because of that, he went from being this monster of a dad to being the kind of person that Bart wanted to be like, the dream father. And there's a lot more to the story too, and it's all in that film, but it's an independent film. It wasn't a big budget movie. I think it was a budget of like $2 million, just over $2 million. And funny story, side note here, the lead actor, the guy who plays Bart in this film, he grew up about a half hour from where I'm living right now. He grew up in Lebanon, Missouri, son of a pastor, and yeah, that was pretty awesome. Guy from Lebanon, Missouri is a part of this film. That's pretty awesome. But I haven't checked yet, but it was projected to make up to about 10 times what the movie was projected originally to make. I mean, up to 10 times the budget. That's incredible. And I've heard from so many people who have gone to see this film. It is awesome. It's amazing. But you see the contrast here. You look at movies like God's Not Dead. You look at movies like Heaven is for Real, War Room, Courageous, Fireproof. All these kinds of movies that have done pretty well. And it's because it resonates with people. It's something that people get a lot of richness out of. They get a lot of substance out of. Whereas with Hollywood and their progressive crap that they like to churn out half the time, it's not something you want to see. I mean, there was a movie that just came out. I can't remember the name of it, but it is based off of a gay relationship. This kid who struggles with being gay and coming out, and he eventually comes out and has this relationship, all that kind of stuff. But again, another movie that tries to push more agenda down your throat, and just don't like seeing it. We just don't. It's not like we hate people like that. It just feels like Hollywood is just trying to force us to be okay with those kinds of things, and we're not. We're not okay with that lifestyle. I mean, look, if you want to be like that, if you want to live like that, fine, but don't expect me to suddenly compromise on my beliefs just because you do something that you want to do. Okay, well, I'll leave you alone, but you gotta leave me alone too. This kind of leads into this, oh my gosh, this story that I cannot believe. Well, I mean, I guess I can, but particularly in conservative circles, is not getting the attention that it really deserves. And it's about this nominee to the EEOC, or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that President Trump is trying to push through. That is just terrible. Now, granted, to be a little fair, she served in this role during the Obama administration, but Trump is trying to get her reelected, renominated, and pushed through again. Well, who is this person? This person is Chai Feldblum, I believe is how you pronounce it. And she began serving in the Obama administration back in 2010. Her term will end this July. Last year, Trump nominated her to a third term, and if she's confirmed, she will serve until 2023. The reason this is such a big deal is she has extraordinary radical views on religious liberty by basically stripping away religious liberty in favor of quote-unquote sexual liberty. She advocates for sexual liberty over religious freedom. And let me just tell you some of her quotes. She's been quoted of saying, "I'm having a hard time coming up with any case in which religious liberty should win. Sexual liberty should win in most cases. There can be a conflict between religious liberty and sexual liberty, but in almost all the cases, the sexual liberty should win because that's the only way that the dignity of gay people can be affirmed in any realistic manner. I believe granting liberty to gay people advances a compelling government interest, that such an interest cannot be adequately advanced if pockets of resistance to a societal statement of equality are permitted to flourish, and hence that a law that permits, listen to this, a law that permits no individual exceptions based on religious beliefs will be the least restrictive means of achieving the goal of liberty for gay people. So in other words, yeah, we may trample on religious freedom, but that's a small price to pay for advancing our agenda, the LGBT agenda. Donald Trump wants this lady to continue serving at the EEOC. Now, what's the EEOC and what does it do? Well, the EEOC is responsible for discrimination in the workforce, making sure that there's equal opportunity. It's a federal agency, and it has the power to enforce federal laws related to discrimination, investigate discrimination charges, as well as influence public opinion through outreach and education. So this is not a small thing. I mean, if she's allowed to continuously be on this commission, hello, gay wedding cakes, it's a Christian-owned business that wants to hire certain kinds of people, or doesn't want to do special services for certain kinds of people. They won't be able to do that because their religious liberty will be overruled in favor of sexual liberty. And it just goes to show, like I was talking about before with the movies, this kind of progressive statist agenda is all throughout our society. But where are people on the right talking about this? Why aren't they talking about this? I've only heard one major host cover this story. Just one. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. Ben Shapiro might have talked about it, but I don't remember. He might have. But even still, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. What matters is, if we say we believe in the rule of law, in due process, in the First Amendment, in the 10th Amendment, in just the Constitution in general, if we say we believe in liberty and smaller government, if we believe in freedom and people being able to live and do as they please without infringing on somebody else's rights, well, then we've got to back that up with action, with actual fact. We can't just say one thing and not do it. So, if you have the time, call the White House, send an email, do whatever you have to do, call your representatives. Say, you've got to make sure that this person does not get reconfirmed to the EEOC, because that affects you, guys. That affects you. It could affect me. It could affect future generations if we continue to set this precedent that, well, whatever the trend is in today's society, that takes hold over what has been granted as basic human rights for thousands of years. Very troubling indeed. So, we will come back here on the Blake Johnson program. We got so much more to talk about. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Wow, I am flabbergasted right now. I cannot believe this happened. Simply can't believe it. This is insanity. I think there's something this has to be, this just has to be a joke. This can't be real. Apparently, Vladimir Putin president of Russia, just won another 6-year term with over 74% of the vote. Wow. How did he win? How could somebody like that win? I just don't understand. I mean, don't people have free elections in Russia? I mean, I was pretty sure it was free, right? It's just wow. It's incredible. But I mean, obviously he must be so much loved if he wins over 74% of the vote, right? I mean, the people love him. They love Putin. Oh, it's awesome. And interesting side note here, but he's now the second longest ruler of Russia behind none other than, say it with me, Joseph Stalin. So I think he's trying to make history. I think he is. But hey, what was wrong with Stalin? I mean, sure, he killed tens of millions of his own people, but who among us hasn't done that, right? And you can't judge a guy just based on the fact that he starved and murdered tens of millions of his own people. And I mean, come on, guys. Do we have to be so nitpicky? Really? Really? Nobody's perfect, okay? You know that. But yeah, somehow he won. This is kind of oh man, I just cannot believe I'm actually about to say this, but there's someone that I work with who is Russian. She can speak English, but she has a very strong Russian accent. And she also happens to be a big fan of Putin. So there's that. And I'm asking myself, what are you doing here? If Putin is doing such a great job, if communism is working so great, so grand, why are you here? I don't understand that. But so is the way of things, I suppose. Oh, well, that's odd. Let's see. In other news, I've got to get to this. So, do you know anyone who had the courage, the balls of steel to participate in that school walkout last week? You know about the walkout I'm talking about, where students across the country walked out and stood outside for 17 minutes to honor the 17 people that were killed at the Parkland High School shooting in Florida. That walkout, oh, so brave, so admirable. I'm choking up just thinking about it. I shed tears. Oh, just tears of gratitude and inspiration that these high schoolers, they were so willing to sacrifice 17 minutes out of class period where they would much rather be in class, learning and educating themselves. But hey, when it's something for gun confiscation. I mean gun control. Stopping gun violence. Yes, stopping gun violence. Some things you just have to take 17 minutes out of your day and devote to. You've got to do that. That is real courage. You know what else is courage? Going after a group that has literally nothing to do with any school shootings. I mean, referring to the NRA as the devil and being responsible for the deaths of many innocent children. I mean, that's courage right there, especially when you are surrounded by thousands upon thousands of big Hollywood celebrities and peers of yours in school and those in the media all combined together to all shout the same propaganda that it's the right's fault. it's conservatives' fault. It's Donald Trump's fault. It's the NRA's fault. It's the guns' fault. That takes courage. To be amongst people who say the same crap as you. That, oh my gosh, I was just shaken to the core. Our future looks so much brighter because of these young students, these young, impressionable people. And it goes to show you that we really need to lower the voting age. I mean, like, seriously, guys, like, for reals, we have got to lower that freaking voting age to, like, 12, 13, guys. I mean, high schoolers, junior high people, they know what's up. They are woke. Hashtag woke. They are the ones that have transcended race. They don't discriminate. They don't bully. They understand the complex issues going on. Whereas the politicians in Washington, those of you who've grown up all your lives studying these issues and voting accordingly to your conscience, you don't know what's going on. You're part of the problem. But these kids, they understand. They know more than you do. They are the ones who should be leading us to grander and brighter things. Heck to the no. Heck to the no on that one. I mean, and you know what's the most frustrating about this is there are actually plenty of conservative, liberty-minded individuals, high schoolers, who don't want any of this. They don't think the solution to this problem is a good thing. People like Kyle Kashuv. He's a very outspoken, he was one of the survivors, by the way, of this shooting, but he's a very outspoken conservative individual. And he doesn't believe in gun control. He doesn't believe in gun confiscation. He doesn't believe the NRA is the villain, that Dana Lash, the spokeswoman for the NRA, is the villain. He doesn't believe that. But he admits that he's young and he has much left to learn. And he's not arrogant enough to think that he has the answers. In fact, he's meeting with politicians on both the left and the right to try to find solutions. Not to say, shut up and sit down, politicians, we don't care about you. But, hey, let's see if we can find common ground. Let's see if we can find solutions. How many people are willing to do that? Seriously, on both the left and the right. Not many. We are never going to solve this problem if we are shutting people down. It's not going to happen. Good luck trying to get gun control passed. Good luck trying to do all these things. Good luck trying to repeal the Second Amendment. I hear from many people who are like, oh, Blake, they're not going to come after the Second Amendment. They're not going to come after your guns. It's just not going to happen. Really? Well, there was an op-ed in, was it the New York Times? It was one of these big liberal newspapers that said, I think the headline was, why we need to write out the Second Amendment. So when you have things like that circulating around the internet, when you have town halls like the one that was held at CNN almost a month ago in which they were crying out for gun confiscation, when you have some politicians who are either saying such or implying such by saying we need to adopt Australian policy. Well, Australian policy is gun confiscation, okay? When you have all these things combining together, is it really that much of a stretch to think, oh my gosh, I think they might be after my Second Amendment rights? Just a thought. Just a thought. But again, why are we relying so much on the youth to dictate public policy? Why are we relying so much on people with emotion to dictate public policy? You never want to create public policy based off your emotions, based off your feelings, because those change depending on the situation. Those are dependent on how you feel, not on what the truth actually is. But that is the goal of these people. They simply want to write out something that they don't like because in their minds, the way they're being taught, this is the disease. This is the root of all of our problems. The Constitution, the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, freedom, liberty, all those things can be damned because it doesn't matter. It just matters how we feel about certain things. Oh my goodness. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine about this, and oh, God bless him. I love him. I think he's a great guy. He means well. He gets a lot of things right, but I tell you, he just was flabbergasted that he was responding to Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson, by the way, is a brilliant guy, and very intellectual, humble guy who just tells it like it is. But I guess he was quoted as saying, look, you're 18, 6 years ago you were 12. There's a lot that you have left to learn in life. You don't know a whole lot about, you haven't learned a lot of things. You don't have the experience, so don't tell me the kind of public policy that we should be adopting based on how you feel and on your limited experience. And a friend of mine was like, oh, I can't believe he would say that. This is so horrible. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, how is this anything but true? I mean, you don't even have, it doesn't matter if you agree with what the, high school person is saying, just purely based on a scientific level, the human brain isn't even fully mature until 25, 26, something around there. So you're not even fully matured yet to be able to fully, break down these issues and try to separate yourself in a adult manner. That's one of the reasons why I think the voting age should be raised. It shouldn't be 18, it should be higher than that. Because you got so many people voting who don't know the issues. Now, maybe I seem like I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to tie this all together to say, basically, it is important to know the issues before you comment on them. And look, I was 15 once. I was interested in politics when I was 15. But I understood that I had much left to learn, and I still have a lot left to learn. That's why there's certain things on this show that I just don't discuss because I haven't put enough time or I just haven't experienced it yet to really be able to understand these issues. But there are things that I can use reason and logic and experience and other people's experience to be able to come to a logical conclusion. That's not what's being done here. What's being done here is these kids in Parkland High are being used by the media, are being used by the left. Look, this whole march thing, this whole walkout, the walkout was organized by, I think it was Empower, but they're behind the Women's March. Remember that feminist march against Donald Trump back over a year ago? Yeah, that group. They were the ones who were sponsoring and promoting this event. It wasn't a grassroots event. It wasn't, what they tried to label. They tried to, trash the Tea Party as, being AstroTurf. No, this right here, this is not grassroots, okay? These are people being used as useful idiots in the ultimate goal of taking away more and more and more of your rights. And we can't just simply, oh, well, they're just little angels. And, yes, look, you've gone through something horrific, but that doesn't make you an expert. Pure and simple. We'll be right back on the Blake Johnson Show. Hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We've got a lot left to discuss and just a couple more minutes to do that. And we'll do so right after this break. comes to the Parkland shooting, a high school shooting, breaking news from yesterday, the deputy and counselors, this is from the Associated Press, the deputy and counselors recommended institutionalizing the shooter long before the deadly massacre at the Florida school. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? So, this guy who, of course, we were led to believe, this was, the police officers, they did what they could. Well, now as more and more facts come out, it's clear, no, they didn't. The system was not followed through the way it should have been. Law enforcement dropped the ball. The local government dropped the ball. So many people dropped the ball. But, no, sure, let's just go after the NRA. Let's go after the gun. Let's go after responsible, law-abiding people who are trying to protect others and protect themselves and their families. Let's just do that. Oh, I tell you, the more we find out details about this, the sicker I become. Because this was like the most easily preventable shooting in modern American history, at least modern American history. But for some reason, no one's going to jail right now over this. Just, we're investigating. Oh, okay, fine. Well, whatever works, I suppose. Let's talk about this real quick. So, Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI, was fired over the weekend by Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General. Now, this is a big deal because he was planning on retiring in, I think it was yesterday, actually. He was planning on retiring by Sunday and still getting all of his pensions. Well, because he was fired on Friday, now he doesn't get access to those pensions. Now, why is this a big deal? Why is it? Who is Andrew McCabe? Why is this a controversial story? Well, the reason it's so important is because he has been shown to have leaked information to, what outlet was it? It was the Wall Street Journal, I believe. And he also lied to investigators when they were talking about the, things related to Russia and so on and so forth. And this is similar to Michael Flynn being dismissed because he lied about meeting with the Russian diplomats. Even though that wasn't illegal, he lied to the FBI about it, and therefore he wound up being fired for it. So McCabe is in some hot water as well. And I thought this was pretty interesting. So Jonathan Turley, he's a left-leaning law professor at George Washington University. He said that McCabe should worry about going to prison, not whether or not he gets a pension. He said that he was making the case that the Office of Professional Responsibility, they were the one that made this recommendation in the first place. It wasn't just Jeff Sessions just got tired of him and just fired him. No, this recommendation was made by the OPR, and he says that it's unprecedented for this to happen because they're kind of it's like pulling teeth trying to get them to really crack down on people. So for them to make this recommendation was a huge deal. You couple that with who else was it? There were Michael Horowitz. He was the Inspector General of the Justice Department. He made this recommendation as well, and I mean, it just goes to show these people on the left, they don't like this at all. They think this stinks to high heaven, and I fully agree with them. But what's more disturbing is the fact that Mueller is not investigating what's going on with the Democrats, and they're clear collusion with the Russians. But we will figure out more of this in due time, hopefully. That's going to do it for the Blake Johnson program. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. Hope you enjoy the show. We will see you back here Monday. Take care, and have a pleasant week. God bless.